Samazeh, when you're talking about, you have to learning Bereshis, that is, how many kids did each guy have, all right? Because we don't have no great numbers, especially when later on by Noach for sure. I don't know for sure, but the progression that I saw once in an Uruk pamphlet was that if one person would have 6 kids, not counting him, and each 6 kids would have 6 kids, and that will go for 10 days, so it'll be 10 million people. I didn't do the math, but that's called progression. We do know there's such a thing. A guy asks you a penny a day for 30 days, but each day you got to double it. I'll give you $5,000 for that. Would you jump at it? Probably you would, right? I'm not making the cheshbon. It comes out to over $11 million.
That's with one wife. If you have few wives, that's with one wife. We have few. What? Yeah. You could afford it.
So, obviously, progression is a big number. So how many people will buy the Mabel, I have no idea, but I assume that each person lived this amount of years, and they were obviously able to have children early, so they had 900 kids, each person, so they had 900 kids, 800 kids, doesn't make a difference, but you're talking about, and they had 800, and they had 700, whatever it is there, so you had in the millions and the billions, you had. So when you're talking about the Mabel was, even though it was only 1,653 years, 52 years?
56, 6 and 56.
15?
1656.
56, 1656 years. You're talking about every 8 years you had another guy able to have children. I mean, if even went down to the time of Kalev Yefune, that he had children at 8 years old. So Mamela, he was a great-grandfather at 25, so whatever cheshbon you want to make. Obviously, it has from the time of the before the Mabel, for sure it was like that. So he had a lot of people in the world. It wasn't just like a few people. Okay.
Yoktan had 13.
What?
Parshas says Yoktan had 13. Yoktan had 13.
13, and that's afterwards. But the Mabel, I'm saying before the Mabel, though. Yoktan himself had, but all the other, what's his name, had only 5 or something like that, the 6. The Kashas, the later ones, Canaan had a lot. Canaan. And what do you call it? 13, also 13, I think. Okay. So these people made a problem that Noach, there was a Mabel and Noach was left. Now, why did the Rebbeinu choose water? I really can't answer you. I mean, he could have done other things. But I guess, in a way, water was the easiest thing to do to drown the world. Where did he get this water from? From Ma'aser Bereshis, when the world was surrounded by water, right? So it had to be, and they said he put the water beside the mayim that's in the earth down here. So that means that there's a lot of water in the mayim. So where is this? How we live with this water, right? If the water is bigger than the globe, right? So you can't fit it into the globe. It doesn't fit. It's bigger than the globe, right? So the Rebbeinu made ice caps. That's what Pshat is. That's the poles and whatever it is there. And you talk about that in time of Enosh, he drowned 1/3 of the world. He did it by making the global warming, as you would call it. He warmed up the world, how many degrees it would take, in order to flood out 1/3 of the world. Now you'll say, how hard does it have to be to do 1/3 of the world? I have no idea. Where is this 1/3 of the world? I don't know. I just was thinking, In the Japanese Sea, no, it's near Indonesia.
What?
In Indonesia, there's one part called with a J. What are the parts of Indonesia? Anyway, in that sea, it's only 90 feet deep. It's not a very deep sea. So I'm saying, I don't know how big it is. That I can't answer you, because a lot of places in the world are 5,000 feet deep in the ocean. So I believe, even though they want to claim that he made the thing, it doesn't make sense. You know, when you make an ocean, you want to make an ocean, right? So what do? You have to make a hole. You put the ocean in. So you make a hole, and you say, okay, I pushed that hole through, and on the other side you get mountains. First of all, I don't think that that's the Metzias, but even if it is, it still won't work. You wouldn't get enough. That's also true. Also, you wouldn't have the answer why there's salt water and sweet water. There's the normal lakes we have are sweet water, regular water we drink. The oceans are salt water. So obviously there was two different waters. So if they were all the same water that came down from that water into the earth, we should only have salt water. Doesn't make sense. All of us, the world contained already water. It had the sweet water, except that it had this. And now it put the additional water into the water that was there. And that he did that with the ice caps. The water there didn't need ice caps. But this one, they say, if the world would get 1 degree warmer or something like that, Florida would disappear. So whatever it is, the ice caps can do it. That's first of all. So they had enough water. He also says, Arubas HaShemayim opened up, Neftochus. I don't know what that is exactly, because I don't even know where Shemayim is. This is the whole thing is Shemayim. So I can't answer you what Shemayim. But whatever that is, it should take a long time getting here. Either Ben Shem can make it get it faster, that he could do. He also did this because he made by Bereshis everything that's going to be in the world. He didn't make no Chidushim at any time. The Rambam goes through this in Pirkei Avos, and it seems probably everybody agrees with that. The Shaila is Tnai, or is that there was the union of Yamsuf splitting, as I believe the Rambam learns that there was a Tanai Ma'aseh Bereshis, that this and this time this is going to happen, and that would make sense for the Yarden too. The only thing I had a difficulty with is why would the Yarden split for Pinchas Ben Yoya and for the Arab. Like, that's also ordained from the time of Bereshis. That didn't make sense to me, unless you can say the water can split. You made it tonight that the water can split whenever I wanted to split. Okay, it can be that way. The Goyin Taka learns because of that, the Kriyas Yamsuf was ice. So therefore, that makes sense. Though you didn't make any new things. He just produced, instead of he made the water into ice, and therefore there was no problem. How did he do it so fast? And that's the basic problem. That's called, it's already created. The fact that water can freeze and this and that, and so he can make the temperature so low that the water will freeze immediately. That's not a kasha. So, but the Rebbeinu Shalom did not create new things after Ma'aseh Bereshis. So therefore, he worked the easiest thing to do to kill a rabbim in the whole world is with water. He put in the water. Also, he has other chedosh cheshbeinis. I'm sure water is a ruchniistic thing, and therefore he ought to got all the ruchniis that the ruchniis get rid of a bad gashmias. Could be. That's why the fish didn't die. Because they lived in the Ruchniistic point, and where does the Rebbeinu Shalom find himself? He comes to play with the Leviosan, whatever that means. So it's also b'mayim. So in other words, that's a Ruchniistic thing. Water is a Ruchniistic thing. And the world considers eating fish brain food. Forget about brain food. It's probably a type of a ruchnistic type thing, and requires no Shlit, no nothing. That's only Gashmis requires that. So something full behemoth that's totally from the ground requires Shlit of two simonim, a bird which is from the marsh, from the mud, so it requires only one simon to be cut. Fish was in the water altogether requires no simon to be cut. There's no simon there in the first place. The only thing that ever bothered me is where was the food for the fish? All the animals had grass and all the things there, before they became flesh eaters. In other words, they were able to get all the energy they needed was from the vegetation in the world. But where did the fish get vegetation? The whole godless of fish that you never have to feed them is because agodol echol sakotin. That means they did eat meat. They didn't eat meat. I don't see how they ate the grass, unless that's not called eating meat. This that they swallow it and disintegrates in them, something like that. That doesn't matter. Or maybe you have to learn different things that before kill, even though people didn't die, you could kill them. You know, die from that's when you can't. That's why Cain was afraid that they'll kill him, and so on. But even before he's supposed to die, even though death is supposed to live a long time, death doesn't happen by itself. So I can't answer these things. I don't know, but you got to think about them. Anyway, this is Noach found Chen Beni Hashem, and he made it. And the Rebbe is going to build the whole world around Noach. And this Parshas of Noach starts here to tell us Noach is Tzadik Tam Hayv. The question, what is the word B'Doraisov? It said B'Dorei, in his time. What is B'Doraisov in his generations? Because I think there's two generations. He lived two lives, one before the Mabul and one after the Mabul. And could be, you can even learn that Tzaddik Tomim is different times. When he was in the time of the Mabul, before the Mabul, he was always fighting with everybody and everything else, and ultimately was proved right. So he was a tzaddik. That's what tzaddik means. You were right. But Tomim means that everybody agreed with me. That could be after the Mabul, even though they did make a migdal in the end. But they still didn't do Avodah Zarah. There was no Avodah Zarah in his time. And it's like that. That's what Mash from the Gemara, that the no Avodah Zarah doesn't only go on Dur of Hevel, but even on the Dur of Noach. And that would make sense. You can't be talking about the generation before. Before the Mabul, there was definitely Avodah Zarah. From Menash's time, there was Avodah Zarah already. So you're talking about after the Mabul then. After the Mabul, talking about Kfira there was. Now, Noach married Nama. Now, there's Machlekes who Nama is. Rashi says Nama is the daughter of Achos Tuval Kaim Nama. First of all, that's why it's mentioned in the Torah. What do we care? But his sister was called. He did not bring anything down because of her. So, Belavos, that she played an important part in the world. She's the mother of everybody. And we have to know who she is. And her name is Nama. Okay, there's Noach's wife. If she's Tuval Kain's sister, I would assume that when the Torah is saying that they were 130 years, they were talking with Adam, that conversation, then the pshat is, and these were the kids that they had already, so therefore, if she was born then, Noach is not born for a good 1,000 years later, close to 1,000, not 1,000 years later, 600, whatever it is there. Lady. It was only 600 years when the Mabul came. He said the thing, so it's yes, 130, 900 something years older than him. Now, what does it mean? So that's like a joke, 900, what do you call it? But the idea is they all looked like 20. It's brought down that when they lived so long, it's not pshat that they got older and older, because age didn't come in until Avraham Avinu. Now, it's to be able to tell the deterioration of a person as he gets older didn't happen until Avraham, when he asked for sickness. And until then, there was no aging process. So when you got to 20, you remained at 20, and that was it. So to look the same, I'm 1,000 years old and I have much more chachma than you have. No. How many times a woman has that anyway? So what difference does it make? That time of years. Okay. Okay. It's also, you can say a simple thing, but I don't know how we would apply it to Noach, because then the Hamabel, he didn't really reach that madrig of Tomim until you want to say they were drowning. But let's say a Rov. A Rov has to go through one matzav first, when he has fights with the board, with the balabatim, or whatever it is. He's a tzaddik. He has to prove whatever his points are. If he's right enough times, then he becomes a tomim. You know what the rabbi said? And that's the way it lives. And to reach that madrig it's a hard one, but people have done it. Okay. Then came along Elokim and spoke to Noach. And Elokim told Noach to do 2 and 2 of every min. That included kosher, treif, it doesn't make a difference, 2 of every min. And at the end it says, Vayas Noach kechol asher tziva Yisrael Elokim. Whatever Elokim told him, that's what he did. Then you have all of a sudden, in Sheni, that Hashem spoke to him. And he told him to take 2 of the treife and 7 or 14 or whatever it is of the kosher. Right? And it says, Vayas Noach kechol asher tziva Yisrael Hashem, whatever God commanded. Now the difference between Elokim and Hashem, we know from Parshas also, that Hashem is midas harachmim, Elokim is midas hadin, and originally Parshas Bo Elokim es Shemaim v'Sa'aretz, and then it says able to tell us Shemaim v'Sa'aretz b'yomi borei Hashem Elokim, and it's boy he was mitzaref Hashem to the Elokim, the Rachmim to the Din, in order for to have a world to have a kiyum. Without that, the world can't exist. Why can't it exist? Either you're killing everybody, or everybody's going to see the Einish in front of them, and there's no bechira anymore. You know, if I see the guy with a malach standing there with a baseball bat and going to slug you in the head as soon as you do something, so obviously I'm not going to do it. So there's no bechira. So therefore there has to be this inyan that we don't feel this looking at us, we don't feel the Einish right away, we don't feel the thing, in order for us to have free choice. Okay. So that's the chilik of all those things. Okay. So we could learn the difference between the 2 tzivuyim is that the first one told him 2 of everyone. That doesn't mean there was a limit how many you can take in. Just they will come to you. 2 will come to you. Boy, what about when Hashem told him about the 7 more? What do you have to do? You have to go get them. So that's a simple difference between the 2. But from Rashi, it's not Parshas or Posha that's the case. He seems to say that they came by themselves. And then again, why was Hashem Meisif? I guess Als Rachmim, for the world, whatever it is, he should have the korbanos. That's not only for to spread the seeds and populate the world, but also as a point of being able to spread the yishuv on the whole planet. So therefore, he used those things. Okay. There's, now the question, it took him how long to build the table? It took 120 years to build the table. Hey, what kind of business that? 120 years, that's 2 lifetimes. What do you mean it took him 2 lifetimes to build one boat? So the boat is not a small boat. It's 50 amas, what do you call it? Right? What's the lotion? 500 amas. No, sorry. 300 amas long, which is, we're using the Chumash Shiur because that's easier to work with. That's 600 feet long. By 50, that means 100 feet wide and 60 feet tall. Okay. I don't know what kind of wood he's using, but whatever that wood is, how is he going to get this wood? Home Depot wasn't invented yet at that time. So how is he going to get the wood? So obviously you got to chop down the trees, right? Then he's got to shape the trees, the wood. Well, what tools does he have? So he has to create tools first to be able to do this. And how long would it take a guy to make one plank? It would take a long time. And that's what one guy did for 120 years. I mean, the push, they definitely had a good exercise, but the persistency of doing this, day in and day out, that's a tremendous job. And he didn't have any children until 100 years before the Mabul. I don't know if that means that he didn't get married until that time, or other things were done. Abulamaisa, he didn't have 3 children. And the reason that the Rashi brings down didn't have children was because the Midas didn't work at that time. Instead of 20, it went to 100. So since no one by him in Chayiv Misa, in the family, it seems it can't, because you have the same Cheshbon Shabris, everybody under 100 should have lived. All of us, their parents were Chayiv Misa. So that was like Ketanim are punished for the parents, or the parents are punished through their Ketanim dying. I guess that would have existed in the Mabul too. Then it says, "Vayovei Noach u'banav v'ishtei she'banav itei al hateva mepnei mei hamabel," because of the Mabul. So Rashi says that he was also miktane amana, that he didn't really believe there'll be a Mabul. Now that doesn't make sense, because we just said he spent 120 years building a teva, and throughout the whole 120 years of work. And then I don't know who was paying him and how he was living at that time, but whatever it is there, he's not going to waste 120 years worth of work. So obviously he believed it's coming. The only thing was, the way the Rashiv explained, is it that that he had 120 years, he figured out what will have to go into the Mabul. I have to go into the Teva to be saved from the Mabul, right? Okay, so I don't have to go in right now. When I can't stand outside, then I'll go in, because I'm going to be locked up in that boat for a year. So, I don't want to go in there until I have to go in there. So that's it. So Shiva explained simply that that's part of the Einish. The Einish is that even though I can save you normally, but I don't want to save you. I could take you up to Shemayim. I can make a covered stadium over you, a dome, and I could have done a lot of easy things for you, but I didn't do it. I wanted you to build the table. I wanted you to take the animals into the table. I wanted you to feed the animals. I want you to have tzoros, because you have to make up for the world, or whatever it is there, or even if you deserve an einish, whatever reason. And that's the einish. And it's a big one. There's no question about it. So you can't just lock yourself out and say, look, the Bensham told you to get in the teva, so why didn't you go? But the only reason I got to go on the table, no, the reason you got to go on the table because I said so. Same thing the Shiva has about the Gabi Chinuch, that in Parshas Hakel, he learns that why do you have the tafel of a boy? Why did the baby, the children come? Says, because your job in when it comes to education, everybody claims that if they don't want to send the kid, my kid's too stupid, my kid is not capable, my kid is too weak, whatever it is there, and I don't want to do it. Right? So the Beinisham made a din that you sent your kid. I didn't ask you if you want to do it or not. I didn't ask you if the kid will know how to learn. That's not your job. That's my job. But your job is to just bring him to the yeshiva. That's where he learns over there. And the same thing over here. Your job is to go into the table. It's not know what about cheshbenis. Not that I know I'm going to learn or not. It's interesting. Pirkei Avos, the Ben Yaina says, on the one that forgets easily, learn. It's hard to learn and forgets easily. He said, but you should still keep learning, because the schar of working and learning he'll get. He may not know, but he'll get the full schar of learning Torah, even though in the end he doesn't know anything, because he's learning. He forgets that God gave him. God didn't give him a memory, didn't give him what he called. That's God, so they're not his fault. Now, a shtickle raya to that some came, or pshat, there wasn't a limit, just the question was a minimum of 2, is we find by that the Medrashim say that Sichain was in the Teva. I'm sure he wasn't invited. And how did he get in there? So either he forced his way in, he's a big guy, he forced himself in, or whatever it is, or when Noach wasn't looking, he snuck in. But you don't find, I'm sure, like a big guy like that, I'm sure they found him pretty fast. And like that there. But once he's in, he's in. Now, it's, anybody that really wanted to come in probably would have come in, except the Beisha maybe caved them out. He put the animals to keep them out. Whatever it is, he didn't want them in. And if you want to ask about dinosaurs and stuff, there are some that want to say that for some reason the Beisha didn't want to continue that min, so he destroyed them then. I can't answer you to the truth of that. It could very well be that the Beisha just made bones that look like something, because in his cheshbon of how the world has to progress, so when he made oil, he made a little bit of oil, but he made that in a year from now, the other things that will disintegrate into oil. And then to 2 years from now, for 3 years from now, for 10 years from now. And what does oil come from? It comes from the bones and the things like that. So these things were part of the creation of the world, that you have all these elements in the world, not just some elements, but with the normal come in the normal degrading of what will happen in the future. So it started from over there. So therefore you have maybe the bones that look like bones, you try to put them together and make up, they look like who knows what. And it could be that but it was never, they never really existed. I can't answer you on what the truth is. But Lamaisa, there's no kasha from them.
Sichon make tshuva? Obviously make tshuva, right?
Huh?
Sichon. Obviously make tshuva.
L'chayret. You believe that's coming a mabel, I'm going in it. It seems that the ones that attacked the Teva were not they want to get saved with it. They wanted to destroy you, shouldn't get saved either. You know it. Now, obviously, it was an esgodel that they all fit. You know, I mean, that thing. But, or you'll say, I don't know, like for the cockroaches, you'll need a little box like this, and for the fleas, a little smaller box. I can't answer you how he set it up. Abel, Lamaisa, how did he take the food for a year? A year of food for all the animals in the world. and all the different kinds, and for himself even. Where you gonna put it? What's you gonna keep it? So obviously it had to be an S, that whatever is lasted for as long as they were on the table.
Who said they fed him every day? Have they given for one day to survive for 1 month?
Yeah, but where's he getting more?
I'm saying you have to sell him. You have to sell him for 1 month. Once in 1 month.
Yeah.
For 12 months, what time? You don't have to feed him every day. It's a part of the miracle.
Yeah, but he didn't. You agree it's an S.
Yeah, it's a nest.
Yeah.
No, but don't go to another nest. How much amount you have to
Okay.
keep?
Yeah.
Be small, the miracle.
Either a lot fit into a small place, or pshat is that it never emptied. It never, you just kept taking, and whatever it is, it was always there. But obviously, and someone asked me a good question, which I have no real answer for. What did they do with the third floor? That was for the schmutz. You think they didn't need it yet. I mean, they didn't need it for the whole trip. I mean, as it keeps adding up, you'll need more space. But in the beginning, you don't need all that space. So you put the food in that place, and as it gets eaten up, this gets taken over. Good.
Zevel was for the kingdom of Harav. That's why it was called. I heard that the Zevel, the reason why it was called Al Shem the Zevel, not Al Shem the food, is because after the Mabel they needed the Zevel
Right.
to fertilize the world. But the food was only a temporary thing.
Uh-huh. Okay, did the cheshbenis of how deep the water was and how it landed in Harav. That's what the Rashi makes the cheshbon, how much evaporation took place per day. Because it was the 11 amas into the water. So I don't know exactly where the door was. I mean, if it's a flat boat, that's what it seems to be. It's a box, not the way they normally shape a table like a boat, because it's not necessary for a boat, because we're not going anywhere. The ikar is we should have a place where we live through the water. So that's a table, just a box that floats and it floats. Okay, where it goes, it's not irrelevant. I don't care if it goes to China, it doesn't go to China, it stays in Al so wherever they live, that's where it stays, it's in it. So they didn't have any reason to move, so it's a box. But the box, the weight of the box goes into the water. So he says when 11 amas, he makes the cheshbon over there. Okay. 11 amas, where was the door? The door was flat on the bottom. Now the door is underwater, I would assume. That's the problem. Okay. All right, anyway, this is what they went, and it landed in Harav. So we would think that Harav is the biggest mountains, because since it makes a cheshbon of evaporation, so what do you call it? But we all know there's a mountain called Everest, which is a lot bigger than Harav, which is in Turkey, and I don't know how tall it is, but it's a big mountain, but it has no shaykhs to Everest, to the Himalayas. So if you had the water was way down over there, so it's not a big deal. I mean, it means some mountains were already saw half the mountain and stuff like that. So, and here it's mashma that they were able first to see the Rosh Harim. And you're not saying you're just talking about where you are in Turkey or wherever it is there. Talking about the Chalal Kulei was like that. And it doesn't make sense then. How would it hit land without first so much more land uncovered by Everest? So it could be Parsha the Pshat is that when you say that the some points are the highest point in the world, right? Everest is not. That's not a cheshbon. It got to be the world, because the world is not a perfect circle. It's a spheroid. It goes in like a different shape a little bit, not quite a football, but it has higher points than smaller points. The world checks everything at sea level, but there are different sea levels. The Pacific sea level is much lower than the Atlantic sea level. So there's a difference in sea levels. So that's one thing. So therefore, when it goes up, we don't know how far it's really going up if you're going from sea level. But it may not be the highest point in the world. Now, the point of the world is if you put a circle around the world, an emissary circle, would that be the highest point? And maybe that wouldn't. And therefore, that's what called it. Same thing we explain why Shach to say that Eretz Yisrael is the highest place in the world. You have to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Only makes sense since there isn't that much. That the initial going up is the highest one in Eretz Yisrael. A mountain doesn't have one level. In other words, you go up 1,000 feet, then you have a plateau, then you go up another 1,000 feet, you have another plateau. But direct go up 3, 4, 5, 10,000 feet straight up, that you don't have. But now it's Yisrael, you have it. Going from the Dead Sea straight up, you have it. Now, is there no other place in the world? Could be not. Or again, the Cheshbon is like a spheroid, and the highest place in the world is Eretz Yisrael. Again, I can't answer that. It's something that you'd have to, even seeing a globe doesn't help on this thing because you don't have that kind of measurement. You have to have something with real measurement on it. Okay. Okay. Then he wanted to know what's going on. And he sends out the Harav, right? And the Harav doesn't go. So if you want to tie a tacky, you learn Sosuminam foolish. So therefore that he only took kosher birds. So it makes sense. There's only two Harevs. And the Harav said, you're going to take my wife, whatever Pshat in the Medrash is. So he didn't want to go. He's not leaving. Only two, we have to stay together. So what happened with him? So it says, what do you do? He kept flying around the boat until the land dried up. What does that mean? Rashi writes or whatever this thing, but the simple pshat is that he didn't take him back into the teva. He kept swimming until he was able to land on land. He kept flying. Now, it's impossible that he has that much care to keep flying for a year or months, whatever it is, till the water dried up. So therefore, what does it mean? So obviously, he had to rest on the teva, but he didn't take him into the teva. And he probably fed him also, because there was no food out there, so he had to feed him. But the thing is, but he didn't let him back into the teva. He didn't do the shlichus, so he didn't come back into the teva. There's no period of living in the teva, so I'm not harming you by keeping you outside. You fly in the rest, you rest over here. You fly again when you finish resting, and that's it, but you're not coming in. Where do we see coming in as a ma'ila? Because by the Yaina, when the Yaina returned, he took him back into the teva. So therefore, Ma'ishma, that he didn't take into the teva. Okay. Then the Rebbeinu said to Noach, "Tema teva ata v'ishlecha v'necha shnei v'necha itach." So he put the man and the woman together. Ata v'ishlecha u'banecha u'shnei v'necha itach. Why did he do it that way? Because now he was mated them to live with each other. Okay. Now when they went into the teva, it was also. So the two things that were born in the teva that you have is the Oirev and the three things, and the Kelev and Canaan. The reason of Canaan, to say, you know, the Rashi counts Chum as a tzaddik and his wife. So how you going to justify that a tzaddik, you know, when can I get the Tzaddik Kodesh Baruch Hu, especially when they see that it's an einish on you, that the world is falling apart and you're going to do such things, you can't do it. So someone like shot, I don't remember who or where. Maybe I saw it. I can't remember. Maybe it's even a medrash. That Seforim was in the thing, and Seforim was Bo Alish's Chum. So therefore, what did he want to do? He didn't want to make it that the kid would be not his. So he lived with her because then you go after Rav Bilis. And therefore, the kid will be considered his. Now, was by Mamsa the same thing. Even a woman, though, was cheating on her husband, but she has a kid, the assumption is it's the husband's kid. Because you go after Rav Bilis. You don't go after the fact that she had, now if the shot said, I've been with my husband for so long, okay, then you know that it can't be the husband's, what I'm saying. But if it's normal life, just he cheats, that would still give the child will still not be a mamsa. A raya to that, this is from Rabbi Lercher. A little further. Yeah. Vayu b'nei Noach hayetz min hateva shem Chum v'yofes v'Chum hu avi Canaan. And Chum is the father of Canaan. What does it got to do by when they're going out of the table? Canaan, if you take a look, according to what we got, he's the last son born to Chum. Right? Kush, foot, Bnei Chum, Kush, Mitzrayim, foot of Canaan. The fourth son, the last son of Canaan. So why is he putting him first? Why is he putting him here that he went out of the table? That you find a lot of times that the Torah, when it's displeased with somebody, with something, even though they should be first, they put them last. You find it by the Malchi Midjan, and you find it by Amrafel. The thing is that really they put him third, but they want to know who he is, so therefore he puts him first the first time. Amrafel, after that becomes Kedol Laima, because he was really the chief. And the thing is, so a guy falls down to third place or fourth place, doesn't make a difference. No, it's your last. And that's all that counts, as far as I'm concerned. But when were you really born? You were born first. You were born in the table. That's what okay.
The Gemara says, after by Chaver Nivnasa. So it says that Asher Adam Baina. Right. So the Gemara seems to hold that Mitzrayim was older than Canaan.
Yeah, according to that pasuk, it seems that way. I mean, I'm just saying, Raya to this concept war, he put him in the fourth position, meaning you're not getting until the fourth. It's a good Raya, though, by the way. You just got to find teretz. What I'm telling you, it could be a teretz. That it's not only when you're demoted all the way, even for Yerusha cases. So I'm saying, so it says there that he told them that they should go out. That in the end it says Vayetze Noach ubonov ve'ishtei neshebon avitay, who went out of the teva. He and his sons and his wife, and that means you separated them again. Why you separated? Just told you it's mutter. Okay, not in the teva, but when you went out of the teva, it became mutter. So you should have gone out that way. So obviously, until they go to wherever they want to go, like a private place, probably was also. I know it's also, but at least I think. So I want to know what is the Torah trying to teach us here, a new attitude. How a man has a wife. In other words, it's like a second wife is going to be. Like for a year you didn't live with your wife, but you see her every day, you're working with her and everything else. Especially with Nama, they were saving the world. They were feeding all the animals. They were feeding them. They didn't sleep for a year. They were happy working day and night. So you get a different appreciation of your wife. You know, a lot of times a guy's married, no matter how many years he's married, and what do you call it? And you really don't know your wife. Well, I went on 5 dates with her for an hour each, and I know for 5 hours I'm getting married. Okay, what do you know about it? Well, I see them like 1 hour. So what do you know about each other? Absolutely not. Nothing. So you don't even know what your bitachon level is. The person himself doesn't know his bitachon level. In other words, we always in Kachim, in Vayikra, we explained that. Well, I'm not going to do it now, but in the kasha we do have. What do you mean you don't know? Now, what you think you're about bitachon, that means if I took away all your money right now, right? Are you going to be worried about it? Or you say, no, Hashem wants it that way, but I'm sure he'll take care of me. Are you going to say that? Or are you going to say, oy vey, oy vey, oy vey? If you're going to say, oy vey, oy vey, oy vey, because I must have done something wrong, and therefore that's why the bench took it away, okay, then it's do a pretty good job if you do. But I don't think that's the reason you say, oy vey, oy vey. Say, oy vey, I lost my money, I'm a poor man now. Okay, then if you search about bitachon, you shouldn't have that problem. Elavos, you really aren't, but you weren't tested, so you don't know. But you were tested little things and this thing and that, and maybe you are about bitachon in certain things. But lemaisa, and when it comes to really important things, they're really not, because the other things aren't important. So mine have giminus, I believe, don't believe. It doesn't mean anything. But here it means something. That's why. So the same thing, you don't know your wife. Now, under such stress situation for a year, and she did a good job. I was amazed at her energy. I was amazed at her kindness. I was amazed at whatever you are. When you saw a true thing, it's a different relationship between the husband and the wife after that. So in a way, it's like a new, I don't want to say new marriage, but it's a new relationship after you come out of the table. So therefore, till they get your mutter, but we walked out with a new appreciation, so we're separate until now, because we're going to go together afterwards. And that's
Shiva, I was thinking all the time, because if you put wife and the husband all the day in the house, 1 year, we know what happens.
Exactly. I mean, that's why when they retired, there was a lot of problems. I think that, and that could be the reason, like, you say people are married 20 years and then they get divorced. Oh, there was always problems, right? Baloney. Whether you say the problem wasn't big enough to get a divorce, or whether they get a divorce after 20 years. But somehow, something happened in there that took that midah that you felt was there the whole time, that made it, I can't take it anymore. And that's when you have a divorce. So I'm saying, so obviously we don't really know the person. Certain things I can live with, certain things I can't live with, and so on. But if you see after a year being together and that close, doing all that work, and being up all the time, and still they're able to talk to each other, able to get along, then that's what a wonderful person this is. This is So that's why I think it would say that way. Then he said, what did the Ben Shem do? I mean, what did Noach do? He built a Mizbeach on the Makan Mikdash, not on Mizbeach probably. And he was Maktiv Korbanos. He did different than the Korbanos were until that time. I don't know how many people brought Korbanos, but we know that Odom brought and Cain the Hevel brought. Past that, I don't know who else brought. But what did they bring? They brought whatever they wanted to bring, and they put it down on the ground, on top of the Mizbeach Mustama, and a fire came down from a Shemayim and burnt it up. So that's how you knew if the Ben Shem wanted your korban or not, or satisfied with it, because he accepted it by setting down the fire. So really, all korbanos were done under Ben Shem's cheshbon. In other words, what he wants to be to accept, he'll accept. He doesn't want to accept, doesn't want to accept. Over here, the Ben Shem's angry at the whole world. So what's Noach going to do? What's bring me the korbanos? He's not going to do that. And it also says that he killed them, and he brought him on the Mizbeach. You'll say, so maybe Hevel also killed over there. You can't say that, because if Hevel would have killed the sheep, then Cain would have known how things die. So he wouldn't have a problem how to kill Hava later on. We saw it, and besides, as far as we know, knife wasn't even invented until Tuval Cain, which was who knows 130 years later. So it doesn't fit with this story. So Parshas he didn't kill it, just put it up there, the other thing. But Noach, who's trying to force in a reich nechoyach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, he wants to show how that the I guess the tshuva, the request for Achmonis, and all these things in his korbanos. So, and the Reuven is not accepting korbanos from him, so he has to make sure that he's going to push it into HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he went and he did with his be'ach, he killed the animals, he cut them up, he put a fire under them, and they burned up. Now, this fire could have been nothing, so it's gone. He made a fire, big deal. But the tshuva and everything else that went along with the korban that he made is Vayorach Hashem es reich nechoyach. The Reuven smelled a reich nechoyach. Now, it's not that he made reich nechoyach; he smelled the reich nechoyach, and that means that Noach, whatever it is, was able to convince HaKadosh Baruch Hu that this would be the first type of korban like that, and from then on. People try just to bring korbanos by bringing korbanos if there was such a thing. It's not so boring to me at all if there was such a thing.
Why they can't be korban toda?
Huh?
Korban toda.
Yeah.
Not because tshuva or...
Yeah, okay, fine. But all the animals, all the
korbanos that come with tshuva, without tshuva is
right. They want to make a deal with, and I think you can see it out. The Akash is a good. But you can see from the way that it is there.
Go allowed to bring korban toda, which you were talking about.
Yeah. So, and I left me alive, so I brought Kelvin Tate. So, what I was thinking that the reason, and I think from the names in a minute we'll see that when Hashem told him to take 7, he was telling him take for korbanos, because without the korbanos, it's not going to work. You need korbanos, and who told him that? Hashem told him that, not Elokim. So here it says who smelled it. Vayorach Hashem es reich nechoyach. So the Reuven said it. That's midas rachamim. Then to reach the next pasuk, Aleph Vayorach Elokim es reich b'zmanav. Elokim gave the bracha. So in other words, the reich nechoyach, the Reuven was one. There's no such thing as 2. But the midas Rachmanis smelled it, but it even convinced the midas Hadin to give him the bracha that he needs him.
So Shiva, I was thinking of the time, like Chazal said that in the Torah already the Moshe Rabbeinu went to Shamayim too, but Rashi said 3 times. As Chazal said, why 3 times, not 3? Because even that Baruch Hu forgiveness, the Nami give the Torah. Same thing here. Not because he saved him, he let him to bring population. Maybe Olam give after the population. That's the Baruch Hu you got to.
Could be. What the oilers of this, I can't answer. And before it's not only they brought the sheep, what he calls it, Mikol, because before. The den of korbanos that the Reuven made not only from sheep and from cows, they were able to bring a korban from any min that wants. And the Reuven made the union of min is, if you consider seizim and kvasim as 2 different things, then you have 10 kosher animals. If you consider it seh, it's one thing, okay, so then it's 9 kosher animals. But those kosher animals are all over the world. Not one place, and obviously we have sub things already. That one is, you have mixed breeds, and even without mixed breeds, you have different, the subsids, they give off to another min, but the main min is this. So you'll find if you'll count kosher minim, probably a lot more than 9 or 10. You'll have it, but that's all derived from these 9 or 10 animals. And now I say some are kosher, and you don't see any. The deer, an antelope, you see many variations of what the deer is and what an antelope is. Giraffes, you don't see any different. It's only one giraffe. Same thing goes with yak. The only yak that I know is a yak, and the same thing with the water buffalo. They're all kosher, right? But I don't see any sub-minimum, things. I can't answer you, why dafke these animals, not these animals. I don't know. But they're spread all over the world because you don't have to go to Golos. You have to have food to eat. And therefore, the Ben Shem made it that it's possible that wherever they go, there will always be food. And even to the yak, which is up in Tibet someplace there in the Himalayas, like you'll find a Jew there. You find all the countries in the world that they're going around now, there's a Jew. The last Jew of Afghanistan just left, or something like that. And things like that. But they had Jews all over the world, wherever you went, in the thing there. And you usually got the Svardim as far as that goes, especially in the what we call the Far East, in China and those places. They established things, and where the Mary Yeshiva was in Shanghai was built by a Svardi guy but in the 1920s, not too long before that. And built just enough for the Miller, perfect for the Miller Yeshiva. And what do you call it? That itself is Shemayim, the things there. But you see, there were businessmen there, and they felt that they need a shul there. Like I'm sure in Shanghai, you probably have shul now, a lot of them. I understand that a weekly minyan is 300 to 500 people that are there for business. They come and that's where they do their business. And so they live there sometimes for a few months, not just dropped in for a week and then drop out. They're there for a few months to see production and a lot of things. And what do you call it? So obviously they have shul there and other things. Then now you'll say, oh, it's a big deal now. Your guy flies out in Shanghai and he's there. And in those times to get to over there was a big zach. That was the Golos. There were Jews in China many, many years ago. There were actual Jews in China. And who knows? And that time Noach made not Noach, Adam made which parts of the land of the world will be populated and which parts of the land in the world will not be populated and stuff like that. What was the cheshbonos of Adam? I have no idea. But the Maaseh, we find that certain places in the world, they said even though like it's a big country, why is everybody living wherever all over the place? They don't live there. A desert doesn't. You have a community in the desert. You're right, people need to live in the desert too. They're sick people, whatever it is. And Baruch Hashem, you get food from anywhere, so you live in the desert. Once upon a time, you didn't live in the desert because where you can get the food from, where you can get the water from. But now you can live there. Is it a lot like that? I don't know. We are the deserts have oases. The oases became cities, like Yericha, Yerat Morim. It's an oasis. It's in the midbar. Okay. Anyway, just the one just thing because going to the end of the time is up, so I just want to stick in. By the end of the Seder, it talks about Avram. If you notice, we know that Sarai is Sarah, and she's never mentioned as the granddaughter of Terach. She says the name of her father, Vayikach Avram Nochel Toim Noshim, Shemesh Avram Sarai, Shemesh Nocha, Milke bas Horon Abi Milke Abi Yisko. So Rashi says, who's Yisko? Yisko is Sorah. Right? So it's very nice. It's so. Why don't you call her Sorah? Or Sorai. That Sorai. So why don't you call her that? What do you call her Yisko for? Okay, it's a nice name. You want to say she was Sorah. Whatever it was. A wonderful reason for it. Okay, weiter. Let's go weiter. Vayikach Terches Avrom Benoi. Terach took his son, Vesloit ben Horon ben Benoi, and his grandson Loit, Vesorai Kalosai, and his daughter-in-law Sorai, Eishes Avrom Benoi, the wife of his son. When to say Bas Horon, right? That's a close relationship here. What are you in this way? It's a granddaughter-in-law. It's not a not your own daughter-in-law. So the Torah, for whatever reason, doesn't show any yichus between Sorai and Terach, which is only Eshes Avrom, now which is that holy that she has no shaykhis with Avodah Zorah, she has no shaykhis with those things there. Why it's so, I don't know, but as I say, we know that she was a greater Neviah than Avrom was. So therefore, it came because of this type of precious. But we'll talk about those things later on in Lech Lecha, Vayera, whatever. Amir Hashem, from now on, I'm just trying to think for Vayera. I know Grammatic, I'm going to the term circumvention. But they may have to make the shiur in the morning. But next week it'll be 11 o'clock again. Thank you. And getting Shabbos.